Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ajmal Masroor Live. We're talking about Israel in Lebanon. And we'll be talking about, of course, Palestine and Israeli conflict. And we'll be talking about the geopolitics of the region itself. If you want to join in our conversation, you're welcome to call and express your views, your thoughts, and even facts and figures that you may already know. Please join us. The rest of the hour, we'll be discussing Israel in Lebanon, as well as Israel-Palestine conflict. This conflict did not begin on the 7th of October. Many of us are told constantly that this conflict began on the 7th of October, which is a lie. Yes, Hamas did attack Israel, but the conflict between Palestinian and the Israeli ongoing conflict that we have been witnessing began over a century ago, when Balfour Declaration was made in 1919, in which the declaration gave the Jewish people a homeland. It was assumed that Jewish people are a people without a land, and Palestine was a land without people. That's the myth that the Zionists of that time was preaching and spreading around the world. The Jewish people are homeless. They need a home. And Palestine is a land without people. So why don't we just match them together? Little did they give any consideration to the inhabitants of that particular land, the indigenous population. When the Jewish communities in Europe were being persecuted, Nazi Germany and the Holocaust that began to rise its ugly head. Many European countries came together or stayed silent when Hitler was perpetrating one of the worst massacres of that time. In this particular period, from 1917 onwards, Palestine was taken by British under their protectorate, and they provided protection to Palestine because it was taken away from the Ottoman. Ottoman Khalifa was defeated in 1914, and after the First World War in 1917, or maybe even 1919, when the British government became the protectorate of Palestine. So my question to you all, and especially to those who have a different view than the one I'm about to explain, if British government was protectorate to the Palestine or Palestinian people that they took over from the Ottomans, how did they then buy the myth that Palestine was a land without people? What were they providing protection to? And who did they become protectorate of if Palestine was a land without people? You can see how silly that particular proposition was. Anyway, Britain became its protectorate. And as the Nazi atrocities against Jewish communities, as well as attack and persecution of the Jewish communities across Europe, intensified, many started fleeing from Europe. And Britain, with the Balfour Declaration already made, allowed more and more Jewish population from across Europe to settle in Palestine. Where were they settling? How were they settling? What land were they using? Whose land were they stealing? Whose properties were they occupying? That didn't matter. Many terrorist groups across Palestine started rising. Terrorist groups that were led by the Jewish communities that had come over or perhaps were there. We don't know the exact nature of who they were, but we know some of the leaders, including the founding president of Israel, was a known terrorist. So they were terrorizing people, attacking villages, burning villages down, Palestinian villages, killing Palestinian people, raping, looting, and pillaging. This intensified, it escalated beyond what was manageable for the British. So British then decided to capitulate, and they took the matter to the United Nations. By then, the Palestinian and Jewish population, the demographics had changed substantially. So the figure that we have, and it is more accurate, so let me look at the figure. It was between 1918 and 1947, the Jewish population of Palestine increased from 6%. If you imagine Jewish population in Palestine was 6% in 1918. By 1947, Jewish population had increased to 33% in Palestine. That's a sizable increase. 33% rise from 7% of the population to 33%. This, of course, alarmed the locals. And between 1936 and 1939, the Palestinians revolted against the British rule and British allowing more and more of the immigrant communities from Eastern Europe, especially Russia or Germany and other parts, to come to Palestine en masse. In the meantime, Zionist organizations continued to campaign for a homeland for the Jewish communities. Armed Zionist militia and terrorist groups started attacking Palestinians. Zionism emerged as a political philosophy and became the ideology in the late 19th century that became the rock, the underpinning philosophy, the basis on which the state of Israel was established, a homeland for Jews. Because of the violence that was happening between the Palestinians and newly arrived Jewish population, in 1947, this matter was referred to United Nations. And United Nations adopted a resolution, and that resolution is called Resolution 181, where they divided up Palestine. And they gave 55% of Palestine to the Jewish people for a Jewish homeland, and 45% of Palestine to the Palestinians for their own homeland. And Jerusalem was declared an international territory, a city that belongs to the international community. Neither Jewish nor the indigenous Palestinians will have a say or the right over it. That's how it started. 1948 wasn't the beginning, by the way. Balfour Declaration was the beginning. The seed of the toxic, the apartheid, the racist mantra called Zionism began even before. But the seed for a homeland was realized when Balfour, that's Lord Arthur Balfour, a British politician who declared that Britain will do everything possible in its capacity to grant the Jewish community a homeland. Now, my brothers and sisters, if I start giving you long, lengthy lectures, you'll get bored of it. The rest is then history. In 1967, Israel provoked and started a war. Though Israel constantly tells the world Egypt started the war, that's not true. It was Israelis that started the war with Egypt. In that 67 war, within 6 days, the Arab countries that came together to fight Israel lost the war, and Israel then occupied more and more of the surrounding countries' strategic land, but also took over most of Palestine. From having nothing, 6% of the population, having very little, to now Israel occupies the entirety of Palestine. Israel tells you and I that Palestinians are in control of Gaza and West Bank. That's a total lie. Palestinians are not in control of Gaza nor of West Bank. In Oslo Accord, according to history as we know, West Bank was divided up into three parts: Zone A, Zone B, and Zone C. Zone B and small sections of Zone B was given to Palestinian Authority that was created at the back of Oslo Accord. Oslo Accord simply said that they will explore achieving peace within 5 years. But West Bank was still controlled by the Israeli government and its troops, and still till today they do. In 1948, birth of Israel and catastrophe for Palestinians has been named as Nakba, where more than 750,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their homes by Zionist militia. This mass exodus will become known as the Great Catastrophe or Nakba. So my brothers and sisters, up to here, let's take a pause. You must have a question. You must have your own thoughts. What really happened? 1948, 750,000 Palestinians lost their homes. Actually, they were forced to flee. They were killed, their homes burned, their villages razed, raped, pillaged, shot, executed. That's what happened. And there were no other choice but to flee. Further, 300,000 Palestinians were displaced by the 6 Days War that happened in 1967. Israel then annexed East Jerusalem in 1980, even though international community had declared it was an international territory. But Israel didn't care. Palestinians want East Jerusalem as their capital for their future state, while Israel has already declared Jerusalem it's its only right, or Israel has the only right over Jerusalem and nobody else has. In 1993, Yasser Arafat, an Israeli Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, signed the Oslo Accord, which aimed to achieve peace within 5 years. According to this agreement, which also took place then and in 1995, 2 years later, West Bank was divided into three parts, as I said: Area A, Area B, Area C. The Palestinian Authority, which was created at the back of Oslo Accord, was offered only limited role and rule in 18% of the land, as Israel effectively continued to control West Bank. And then Israel started building settlements and checkpoints. After the Oslo Accord, Israel slowly broke down some of its settlements, but Palestinian land and its territory were taken by some settlers, and it went from bad to worse. The settlement population in West Bank and East Jerusalem grew from approximately 125,000 in 1993 to 700,000 in September this year. In other words, illegal settlements in Palestinian territory consist of more than 700,000 people living in occupied territory illegally. The Israeli settlement program and the separation wall that separates Palestinians, you can see it with your own eyes when you go there. About 700 road obstacles, including 140 checkpoints, has been dotted around the West Bank area. 70,000 Palestinians with Israeli work permit cross these checkpoints on a daily basis, but face daily humiliation. West Bank, even today, is a living hell. I've been there myself. For the people of West Bank to go to Masjid al-Khalil, the Mosque of Ibrahim, they have to go through checkpoints. They have to walk around miles before they can even come to the checkpoints. For them to go and visit their relatives because they're in a different zone, they have to go through checkpoints. get humiliated by the Israeli soldiers, gunpoint, sometimes strip search, sometimes denied. Women have to give birth sometimes at the checkpoints because they're not allowed to go to the hospital unless they go through the checkpoints. It's a living hell for the Palestinians living in West Bank. Checkpoints, more than 400 to be more precise, checkpoints have emerged in all parts of Palestinian territory. It's not the end, my brothers and sisters. Then, after the election that took place in 2007, Israel imposed a blockade of Hamas because they came to power, and the blockade was of whole of Gaza Strip. They've cut down electricity, food supply, water, fuel. They control them actually. Everything that goes in and out of Gaza, they've controlled since 2007 and before. But this blockade of Gaza was slow starvation of the Palestinian people. In fact, some of the Israeli ministers in the government are noted as saying, well, we'll put them on a diet. They can lose some weight. Cruel, barbaric, brutal statements from Israeli politicians. Doesn't get reported in our mainstream media because it's not worthy of mention, isn't it? Palestinians, I've seen with my own eyes, lack basic water. They don't have clean water to drink because Israel prevents the natural water from flowing into Gaza because they've diverted the water channels into the Israeli-controlled area. That's a war crime, by the way. Blockading a people, starving them to death, diverting water, all of these are war crimes, but nothing is done about it. On the 7th of October, when the Israeli areas were attacked by Hamas and 1,200 people were killed and over 300 people were taken as hostage, it immediately provided somehow a green light for the Israeli government to wage not a war but a genocide against the Palestinians. Since the 7th of October incident till today, nearly a year, we have witnessed with our own eyes more than 40,000 plus Palestinians have been bombed to bits, killed, completely blown away from the face of this earth. Their homes have been destroyed, their mosques have been flattened, schools have been flattened, churches have been destroyed, marketplaces have been bombed, nurseries have been bombed, hospitals been bombed, playgrounds been bombed, marketplaces being bombed, shops being bombed, residential complex being bombed. Even the places where the Israeli government tells the people of Gaza to go because it's safe area gets bombed and people get killed. Why? What justification can anyone provide, Israel or anybody for that matter, that it has the right to kill 40,000 plus more than 40,000 people? For what reason and what did it gain? Injuring over 100,000 people, displacing the entire Gazan population. What justification can anyone provide? And the idea that Israel has the right to defend itself, well, that also is a false statement. Israel doesn't have the right to defend itself, especially when it is an occupied force. Occupation army does not have the right to defend itself because it is occupying, and by definition, occupation is illegal. And Gaza, as well as West Bank and Jerusalem, currently is defined as occupied territory. If you go into the British government's website and look for Gaza, you'll find it's called occupied territory. British government, our law says Israel is occupying Gaza, and an occupation force has no right to defend itself. Occupied people have every right to defend themselves. Fight back the occupation with any means necessary. That's what Geneva Convention gives. That's what human rights give. That's what international treaties say, that's what humanitarian law says. Occupied people have the right to defend themselves. An occupation army has no right to defend itself. The argument is, well, Palestinians came from Gaza into Israel and attacked Israel in its own sovereign territory. Well, Gaza has been blockaded by Israel since 2007. It's an occupying force. The whole of Israel is an occupying force. For the Palestinians to defend themselves and break free from an open prison according to international law is allowed. Israel has no right to attack Palestinians in Gaza in the way they've done. They have no right to do that. And yet, Britain, America, European countries all turned a blind eye and have given a green light, license for it to kill. They've given Israel bombs and ammunition to kill. They've given intelligence for Israel to continue. They've given Israel political clout, and Britain and America often uses its veto power in the Security Council to block any resolution against Israel. The question is why? Why do we see such shameless, naked hypocrisy on the part of the West? And why do we allow a nation called Israel to get away with genocide? After the break, I'm going to talk about Israel attacking Lebanon and how that came about and what do I think about it. And I would love to hear from you, love to hear your calls. Give us a call. Let's discuss this a bit more. Let's hear your views. Maybe you've got a very different insight. Don't go too far away. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll carry on the conversation about Israel in Palestine and Israel in Lebanon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, Ajmal Masroor Live. We're talking about Israel, Palestine, and Lebanon, all in one. We want to also bring in what's happening with the Yemeni Houthis attacking with their drones. We want to talk about the geopolitics of the region, the fact that the whole region has stayed silent. In fact, Israel has tried its best to bring them on. They tried to include and expand their war and involve the neighboring countries. It assassinated Palestinian leader Ismail Haniyeh in Iran, in Tehran. It attacked other countries. Now it's Lebanon. The Lebanese militia, Hezbollah, has been sending rockets in the direction of Israel, in the northern parts of Israel. And now Israel has gone in. Now, to suggest that Hezbollah has been sending rockets into Israel would be too simplistic. This fight between Israel and Hezbollah goes back all the way from the day Palestine and Palestinian conflict began. Hezbollah, the Lebanese people have never accepted this status quo. Hezbollah is a Shia militia. We all understand that it has got connections with Iran, and it has been fighting several wars in support of the Palestinians. Many of their local people have been killed, homes destroyed, businesses destroyed. It is a known fact that the Palestinian cause have kept the Hezbollah and their movement constantly engaged with the Israeli military. Bombing and counter-bombing, or rockets and counter-attacks, has been happening regularly. Now, what the Israelis are trying to do is they're trying to create an environment so that they can have a ground invasion of Lebanon. So southern Lebanon would be invaded by Israel. That's the plan in the next few days. There is an assumption that Hezbollah will crumble. There is an assumption that what will happen, obviously on the recently, it was the day before yesterday, when the Israeli bombing began, in one day they killed more than 600 people. And a couple of days before that, a few days before that, we remember people's walkie-talkies exploding, people's pages exploding. Israel has never claimed responsibility for it, but critiques, especially those who have commented, a large number of them have commented about it being handiwork of Mossad, handiwork of Israel. This is what it does. This kind of dirty game or war or assassination technique is only done by the Israelis. But leaving aside all of that, then the bombing began. And in that bombing, they've been bombing southern Lebanon relentlessly over the last couple of days. It's the second or third day of war now, and we have heard nearly 1,000 people have died. More than 70,000 people have been displaced. They've moved. But there is a miscalculation on the part of Israel. If Israel thinks that it can just walk into Lebanon without any resistance. Hezbollah has been sending rockets back into Israel, including in some of the major cities, targeting Israeli military installations, Israeli infrastructure. Unfortunately, this war that we see that's happening is not going to make Israel stronger, is not going to give Israel the security that it looks for, is not going to create a home for the Jewish communities, is not going to create a peaceful environment for the Palestinians or the world around. The war with Lebanon is going to make it worse. In fact, it's probably time that the international community woke up and took a decisive step. It's come time that we assessed Israel for what it is. It is an apartheid state. It's a racist state. It's a state that is built on lies and myths. These are not my words. These are words of international community, experts, United Nations, Human Rights Watch, Beit Salem, which is a human rights body within Israel, We know so many other organizations that have called Israel an apartheid state, a racist state. We have reports galore out there. I can't quote those references from the top of my head right now, but we know what Israel is doing is nothing short of a deliberate act of starving a nation to death. That's a war crime. Killing en masse, that's a genocide. And of course, completely disregarding international law in the way it behaves. Now, what should we do as the international community? What do you think we should do? I'm proposing, this is me proposing, and you're welcome to challenge me. And I'd like to be challenged. I'm proposing that we dismantle the state of Israel. And we create a new state for all people, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, as equal citizens living side by side in the same country, with equal rights to everything. Anyone guilty of serious, heinous crime, try them in court. An international court, if that be. But without dismantling Israel, this monster has become too big. The activities of this monstrous country is intolerable, indefensible. Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal for sure. In fact, he was thinking of going to attend the United Nations Assembly, but he didn't, because an arrest warrant by International Crime Court is imminent, and he's worried, what if it is released when he is in New York, then he will be arrested. It's not me saying this. International community is saying that. Institutions are saying that. Most countries in the world don't support Israeli government's policies and its occupation, its apartheid system, its racist system, and the genocide that it has perpetrated against the Palestinian people. A few countries do, yes, especially Western ones, the ones that enabled it and founded it. America, Britain, Germany, especially these three countries, die-hard, blind supporters of Israel. Doesn't matter what Israel does. These three countries provide economic, political, and military muscle for Israel to continue. There will come a time when Britain, America, and Germany will find itself in the dock too for enabling genocide, for aiding and abetting genocide, for enabling, empowering, aiding and abetting apartheid, racist philosophy to dominate and cause death and destruction of innocent people. There will come a time Britain and America and Germany will have to face the consequences of their action that they're taking today. But whatever the motive is, there's only one solution left. I don't think two-state solution would ever work. Israel doesn't want two states. It has made sure the two-state solution is dead. There is nothing left for the Palestinians to even dream about two states. Gaza is flattened. Nothing left of Gaza. What two-state are you talking about? West Bank is destroyed, is occupied, it's got checkpoints. And people are killed on a daily basis. Settlers are running havoc in that particular area on a regular basis. Palestinians are being dehumanized on a daily basis. What two-state solution are you talking about? There is no two-state left. There's only one solution left. Dismantle Israel and create one state for all. I'd like that state to be called Palestine, the historic Palestine that it was, in which Jews, Muslims, Christians, people of faith and no faith, live together in harmony and peace, side by side, as equal citizens. Jerusalem becomes an international capital of faiths, maybe even managed by United Nations. I can't see any other solution. Israel needs to be dismantled piece by piece, for it is an illegal apartheid colonial settler colonial state, occupying Palestinian territory and land, destroying Palestinian lives, their ethnicity, their nationality. Ethnic cleansing has been happening for the last 100 years, followed by massacres upon massacres, and now in broad daylight a genocide. Why would you find justification to keep a state like that going? Where would you find justification for it? I can't see any justification for anyone suggesting that Israel has the right to defend itself. Forget about defending itself. I'm calling for Israel to be dismantled. Now, I'm quite happy to be challenged. I'm quite happy for you to call in right now. Doesn't matter what persuasion you have. Call in and challenge me. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me what I'm saying is not correct. And give me a solution. More than 40,000 Palestinians have been killed. And majority of them are children, by the way. And women. Forget about Hamas. If Hamas was killed, how is there still fight back from Hamas operatives in Gaza? Israelis have completely misunderstood what Hamas actually is. Hamas is not an organization as such. Hamas is resistance. What is the resistance? Against occupation. And if occupied people want to organize themselves, you can't stop them. We can scream all we like. You can call Hamas a terrorist group, which is what our government has done. But that doesn't take away the resistance that we're seeing up and down Palestine and the global movement that has risen from the UK to Australia. Millions and millions of people are now on the side of the Palestinians demanding the same thing. End occupation now. Dismantle this apartheid, racist, settler colonial state now. That's what people are calling for. Stop arming Israel now. Boycott, divest, and sanction Israel right now. Politicians are not listening, but masses are calling for it. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, what is your view? I've been blubbering on for the last 45 minutes. Love to hear from you. What do you think? Do you agree with my statement that Israel should be dismantled and a new state should be created under the supervision of neutral arbiter, not Britain, not America, not Germany, none of the Western nations who have been complicit to the genocide, but international arbiter who are objective? Let them arbitrate. Let them create a new state for all. And all people who have committed crimes against humanity should be tried for their crimes. Allow the Palestinians who've been made homeless to return to their own homes. What do you think of that? Do you have a view about the Palestinian and Israeli conflict? Do you have a view about what's going on in Lebanon? And do you think Hezbollah is going to take it lying down and allow Israel to just walk over into Lebanon and take over? Do you think Israel actually has gone too far? Do you actually think Israel will get away with it? And do you think international communities should do something more? Should we actually be calling for something even more drastic? Kick out America from United Nations for the way it's behaved? Should we be calling for that? Some people are. I've received so many emails and messages to say, please join our movement. We are demanding that the United States should be kicked out of United Nations. It may be impractical because most of the United Nations headquarters and buildings and operations are in New York and Washington and other parts of the United States. But surely a state like United States of America cannot be seen or cannot be supporting genocide. Surely a country based on a constitution that gives civil liberty, justice and fairness, human dignity and honor priority should not be supporting genocide of Palestinian people. What's gone wrong with the American government and what's gone wrong with American people that they are turning a blind eye to their government's complicity in genocide? Finally, what's gone wrong with the Muslim rulers around the Middle East? Saudi Arabia, UAE, many of these powerful countries with oil wealth, gas wealth. They're supposed to be powerful, but they're not even making a squeak. They sound more coward than the cowards that we have seen in our lives. Why are they not saying anything? Or are they enabling Israel? Do they have an interest? Do they have an agenda? What's their agenda? Why would they like to see Israel perpetrate genocide against their fellow Muslims in Palestine and do nothing to stop them? Nothing to stop Israel from doing it. Nothing. Why do these Muslim rulers even exist and rule? Why do they even exist? That's the question I want to ask. And who gave them the right to rule in the first place? Were they elected democratically? Did the people of those countries have a say over who should be their rulers? They're being told you should accept it. Why should they accept it? Why should people of those countries accept the status quo in their respective countries when their rulers are despotic, illegitimate, their rulers are dictators, monarchs that they have no say over? They can't account for them, they can't account them, they cannot select them, de-elect them, they could do nothing. They just have to accept the hegemony that those rulers perpetrate. Why? So the question I have is, why are these rulers silent? Or should we not expect anything from these rulers since they're despotic in the first place? So brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Palestinian conflict, the conflict with Israel can be over in seconds. If America, Britain and Germany said, no more, stop it. We're dismantling Israel and creating one state for all. That's it. But it looks like Benjamin Netanyahu is demanding from America, you shall support me, you will support me, you dare not say anything, you dare say anything against us. Sounds like that. Sounds like Benjamin Netanyahu is calling the shot. And Benjamin Netanyahu is who? The war criminal. A convicted criminal in his own country for corruption. He's trying to stay in power for as long as possible, otherwise he'll be in jail. And there are other equally nasty pieces of work in the Israeli government that have called for the total annihilation of the Palestinian people. Total destruction of the Palestinian people. And the world communities have said very little. And that's the saddest tragedy. So today I'll finish here by saying to you all, please do read more about the conflict. But the solution is simple. Dismantle the state of Israel right now. And establish a state for all people with equal rights, regardless of their faith, regardless of their nationality, or ethnicity, or religion. I hope and I pray that we see the world better than the one we see today. And we leave this world a better place for our children than the one we have had. For myself and my team, I'd like to thank you for listening to my monologue for the last hour, but you haven't called, so I couldn't have discussed it. But today we're going to finish here. Until next time, from myself and my team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.